Hello, everybody. My name is Gerone Wright, and once again, you're joining me on my YouTube Geronification channel here on YouTube. Okay, here I have a picture up, or a painting up of a copy of a painting of that of Cleopatra, Julius Caesar, a couple of individuals in the back, and then I guess what you would call a loyal servant bowing down next to the queen. Okay. It's my position through my paranormal experience and encounter, which enlightens me to have a multidimensional sense of being, a multidimensional sense of awareness, and a multidimensional sense of vision. I can describe what is being shown to you here in this painting. Everybody will agree with me that these Renaissance artists' paintings and artworks that represents our ancient times are very bizarre indeed. But yet they're very interesting, and we're attracted to them in a way that, like, wow, you're saying, how can this be? You know what I mean? In these times, these ancient times, what were these people thinking? What kind of lives were they living? But anyway, having said that, Julius Caesar and Cleopatra are very famous for their romantic elopement, being from that of different nations. Julius Caesar from the great nation of Rome, and Cleopatra from the great nation of Egypt, which evolved from that of Africa. It's my position that nothing romantic is really being suggested here. There was more to the involvement or the elopement of Julius Caesar and Cleopatra than you could ever imagine. But I'm going to change that history now for you here in this exclusive video that tells you that Julius Caesar and Cleopatra together conspired in a relationship to alter genetics, which will further them genetically from that of the ancestors from which they actually evolved. Which ancestor was that? The ape African ancestor. This artist captures this being as being tamed down at her side like you would an animal, a dog or a cat, like your house pet, trained at your side. Her arm extended, firm, down on her servant. You know what this is stating? That genetically, he is balanced. She has, from her ancestral roots, she is telling you that she has her ancestral roots in check. This is what this is suggesting. Meaning that the genetic side of her that has this being that calls for her existence. This being calls for her existence. Their ancestors calls for her. She's stating that through a bridging, a sequence of genetic bridgings down in her body, the blackness, this being representing this part of her is in balance. Not imbalance, is balanced. This is why this depiction is shown. And now, showing you with this being peeking around Cleopatra is telling you that she is now furthering that process away from herself by genetically contaminating herself and bridging with Julius Caesar. Sounds like a crazy story. Let's look at this again. Let's look at this image. Look at those in the background. All people that is suggesting this genetic bridging. It's a room full of look at genes and motions, genetic emotions. It's showing you a washing of genes. Which genes? These genes here. The ones that are being pushed down, pushed away, pushed down, contained, controlled. How are they being changed? How are they being altered? Well, I can take you from here, this likeness, to this likeness, and to this likeness. So I understand what is actually being stated here. Okay? Now, let's take it this way. At this point where Julius Caesar is genetically, at this point where Cleopatra is genetically, there's going to be another genetic change between the both of them, and that's the cause for their monumental story. or should I say, historical story. Now, let me show you what's being done. How would you change? Well, these genetics were hard to overcome. You ever heard of when black and white got together, black genes would dominate? Well, these tales have always been about how that gene has been being weakened through a process of contamination. It's target contamination of this gene and altering, which calls for the likenesses to change from this individual to these individuals here. Not just outwardly, but inwardly as well, too. All right? When I get my scientific team together, I'll let them explain it to you in a scientific way. But for right now, we have to just deal with it in my layman's terms until we can actually get myself a scientific team together. All right. How are these genetic changes done? Well, I already know how she became the image of she has, how he became the image that he has. So how would they further change the process? Well, Julius Caesar is telling you that his contamination through Rome is through that of reptile. A contaminating of their blood using that of the genes of reptiles. This is how they move themselves away further at this point. Which reptile are we talking about? Notice Julius Caesar hand. She's Queen Cleopatra is already showing you that she's bridged over black. This part of her now contained. She has it. Contained. So what is going on over here? Look at this pin or this object that Julius Caesar has stuck down into the table. Queen Cleopatra bridged over black. Julius Caesar is bridged over a reptile. Which reptile? Well, basically, the artist already knows this, and I know this. It's actually a reptile, a reptilian, in the shape of an ancient dinosaur, in the form of a head of a crocodile. You turn the picture upside down and bring it in. This is a picture that you can Google, and you will see that Julius Caesar's object in his hand, the pointer, pencil, whatever you want to call it, is stuck in the body of the head of a reptile. See the head of a dinosaur-looking creature right there? Let me see if I can highlight that even further for you. There's the elongated. Hold on. Let me make sure. Should I move this now? Well, right here. This object right here on the table, right there, is the head of a crocodile, which represents our reptiles, our ancient reptilian creatures, that of the dinosaurs. So Julius Caesar is telling you that he's contaminated with those genes. His blood has been altered, and now they are eloping to further the process. So Cleopatra is actually contaminating her nation with genes of that of Rome that was created, showing you a process which is being furthered. Hard to believe, isn't it? Let me bring in another picture by another artist. You can Google paintings of Cleopatra, or you Google Cleopatra's name, and you will get paintings. Here's a famous painting in the #1 Google search. Let me take this other image out of the way. Let me show you how this is all being done here, people. Well, let me show you something. Notice now, here's Cleopatra sitting on a floating vessel shows you other things, amongst a host of other things, where these guys are actually docking next to her floating vessel. Well, I want to show you something. There's a black woman right here. Okay, there's an African woman right there. I know what is being stated by this because I know exactly what the message is that's being stated. Cleopatra again showing you that she's bridged between Africa and Egypt and furthering the process and genetic altering herself. This is why this African woman is of her blackest image, and this Egyptian woman over here playing the flute is of a darker version, and then Cleopatra is shown in a lighted version, showing you that she is genetically altered, genetically further from them, not just outwardly, but inwardly. The process is being furthered by these Rome characters. This is the image. I'm going to show you what the image actually looks like in a minute. But I'm going to show you here. Don't I have another image there or no? But anyway, here's what the image looks like. You see them there, and then there's actually the soldiers. Where's the image of the soldiers? Oh, okay, I have that there, but where's the other one? Okay, up here. This image is big, so this here, I have to do the image in several parts because it's actually when you print it out, it actually doesn't cover the whole thing, so I had to actually move it over. But over here in this section of the image, these are floating vessels. Is this part here? The soldiers, you see that? This is the other part of this guy, as if he's going to climb over into the vessel with Cleopatra. You see the curtain there separating. Here's the guy standing there. Okay. Well, no, here's the curtain here. The color like separation right there. The curtain of Cleopatra's floating vessel. On the other side of that curtain, are these soldiers, which is guarding this energy here, which I'm going to explain in a minute. Okay. Now let me bring all my pictures over. First of all, the African woman that's here is representing Africa genetically. Ancient genetics that you know nothing about. Which ancient genetics are she's representing? Well, she is showing you, just like Cleopatra is shown, that she's bridged between these ancient African genetics and Egyptian genetics, which calls for her change. You see how her stick is going in and pointing in? It's going into a bloodline of that of ancient Africa. You know what that bloodline is? Well, if you look in the shadows here, and you look here, you will see the faces. There you see one face, chin, mouth, nose, and eye. I know what these genetics are. They're morphing, multidimensional presences that describe who we are. You see this almost ancient like cat face here? Mouth, nostril, eye, and eye. You see that? The same creatures that are shown here. You see, these creatures that they are shown cloaked with, this clothing, this was not a fashion statement. You know why they wore these? Because they were coveted in the blood and the genetics of these creatures, which calls for the genetic altering and furthering of these beings that are shown wearing these objects, further from that of their ape and African ancestors. These genes of these beasts were utilized to cross-contaminate genes of our origins, which of ape and African, and create other likenesses of mankind, which describes how you can get such a dramatic change from such a dark individual to become a light individual with altered hair, with altered physically, outwardly, and inwardly. And that's what these images are commemorating. Now, You see the faces, the shadowy faces, and all of that. Let me show you some other faces that appear, which represents these ancient genetics, in which I know what they are. You know, we have shows about ancient aliens, and they're talking about elongated heads, and there's skeletons that have been found with elongated heads and all. Well, if you look here, there's a chin, there's a mouth, there's a nostril, and if you look close enough, you will even see an eye of almost like a reptile there, right here. Then the eyebrow here, coming around to the other head. You see that half a face right there? See, look at that. Look at this big head, this alien-like head right there, an elongated head. You see that right there, like a head of an alien. Look, people. Look at the mouth, the chin, the nose, the eye. It has a reptilian eye. Can you see that? Can I bring that in closer for you? To see, you could possibly see the line in there that creates that reptile's eye, right there. Right there. I'm at the line and the eyeball, and look, even look at the skin over the top of the eye, making that guy look like a reptile. You see that? You see that half of alien face, that alien-looking face? Well, our ancestor existed, and it was a black ancestor, which represents a black gene, a specific gene group, which I know what they are. So, these beings have faces. These artists knew that, because these faces included shows you the bloodlines which were branched over and which was changed. And this is why this branch is shown coming through here, showing you that there is an extension, a branching of genes which represented that of ancient, that of present, and then these faces all represent how these beings genetically became altered to look like these beings. And then it shows you the creatures that were included. But let me show you what that face looks like. You see that alien's face right there? You see, people like our ancient alien theorists and other theorists that has us with our heads in the clouds, looking away from the truth, when the truth was always there before us. For them to find this, they would tell you that we had alien visitors. I sometimes wonder if these people are just that fucking stupid, to not realize that these beings represent our ancestors that were here, that evolved from out of the oceanic waters of our world. I'm wondering sometimes if people like Van Daniken and Giorgio, whatever his damn name is, and other people, you know what I mean, are they being paid to guide us away, to look up at the stars for alien visitors, when the alien visitors are actually the description, those described are beings that came from our oceanic waters, that were created right here, mutated from out of the waters of our world. I have found mountains of evidence to show how this creature genetically evolved from out of the oceanic waters of our world. And artists captures them in encryptions in their paint over and over and over again. Shows you how this creature, in relations to our African ancestors and lions and tigers and bears, oh my, how there was a genetic bridging that calls for altering changes in mankind's being on each continent. And it shows the creatures in which were involved. You see this? Look how this stick goes into here, comes across here, this stick, showing you that she extracted these genes. And then in this hand, she has another stick, look, that goes into here, into this pole, look, ancient Egypt's pole, and showing you another bridging over, and showing you these likeness, these extractions. And this chain, look, this chain of events from here, these bridges, these branchings, this is what they, branches, genetic branches, showing you how Cells were changed through branching of genes. And then they're going back to Rome. So, let me show you the other side of the map. I mean, well, not the map, the other side of the image, because my mind is on a map for some reason or another. Okay. You see that head there. Now, let me lift this up. Eyebrow. Well, hold on. Forehead. Eyebrow. Eye. Eyelid. Here. Eyelid. Eye. Nostril. The definition of your mouth. Where your mouth, where your cheek engages your mouth here, there's a cheek line right there at the mouth of that creature. Chin area. Lips. Impressions of lips. You see that? Right there? At this African woman. And then other beings down here, which I actually know what they are as well too. This face can be realized in multi-dimensional senses. There's a face here, there's a chin. You see the lips, and through the lips, opening of the lips, her hand comes. You see what that shows? There's an eye there, eyelid. You see, you know what this is stating, people? Genetic altering. Creates a triangle of these genes from here, showing you how these genes are cycled back and forth here, bridged over here, showing you the creature, the leopard, then going over here, branched back out, extracted from her body, sent over here, showing you what's being done. I can tell you exactly what's being said by this. All genetic bridging. Look at this. A breakdown of these African genes. Now and then, look. The face can actually also be realized not just to the side, but if you look at it, the face can be looked at you coming forward. Multi-dimensional faces, which represents genetics in motion. A breakdown of that of our African genes, which calls for the massive contamination of the continent of Africa. Because all those that are involved took turns contaminating this continent. Even Africans are no longer Africans no more. You know why? Because their genes have been watered down with cross-contaminations from those that have targeted them globally. Genetic warfare. And we wonder why the continent of Africa is damn near sick to death with disease and famine and plagues and everything else. It's a genetic dumping ground where genes are being cross-contaminated, while others, now check this out, how other bloodlines, royal bloodlines and other ancient bloodlines are being protected. They're being cross-contaminated. Look at the branches branching off of these genes. Africans don't even know their ancient roots. And here you have other artists globally boastfully showing in their artworks and encryption styles the genetic roots of Africa and their genetic identity. Let me keep going here. All right, now that I have your attention. Let's go move over to this guy here in the boat. What do we have? What do we have? The guy in the boat. What do I want to tell you about him? I thought I had some. Okay. Let's go. We're at the guy in the boat now. Okay, I'm going to take these pictures down. I'm going to go over to the boat. You can Google these images too. The images that I brought up, the first one and the second one, are searchable images for that of Cleopatra. Number one, actually. Now, let's go here. It's amazing, too, how all of these paintings are describing something very similar. How mankind was genetically altered from its ape and African ancestor to that of his current being, which is that of our Caucasian counterparts. Let's go to this guy right here. And his face is another being shown. The arm that he leans over is another face shown that genetically identifies genetics, a specific genetic group. Okay. The armrest that they are on shows me or identifies with me because I know what this being is right here, a specific genetic group. This guy here, if you turn that, can I turn that picture? Creates the face. Can I get it? I possibly can't get it that way. Let me see if I can do it this way. You see that witch-like woman there? It specifies genes. If I can turn that here. Oh, here you go. I cocked it a little bit. You see this right here? You know what this is showing us? The head of that of a cat, lion creature right there. You see that? Right here. And you notice that this object here is shown pressed over to there, bridging over. Shows you the creatures right here. That these two guys are leaning over. Showing you the ones that they're bridged over. Okay? And this is, I guess, is on the Roman side here. Now, at his throat area, beard area, snaking down, snake genetics, showing you semen. That's why his leg is lifted up, showing you now the semen from his penis is going there. How do I know that? Because this represents semen. I'll tell you about that later. Going. She is representing. You ever heard them play my flute? You ever heard kids playing? I mean, well, not kids. When I was a kid, play my flute. You ever heard that saying before when people talking about getting a professional or blowjob or something of that sort? Or play my flute or play my fiddle in reference to, in other words, suck my penis. Well, that's what this is representing. Genetics. Coming down. Look at this as being a straw. This person drinking. This person is genetics. They didn't have science labs back then. They did it the old-fashioned way. In order to share blood and semen and other bodily fluids that cause for genetic change and alterings, you had to do it the old-fashioned way, which was orally and through contamination, putting across contamination in that sense. Letting one other person's blood touch you, your blood, you cut them, and your bloods come together and intermingle. This is what this was all about. And this is what our ancient Renaissance artists are showing in doing this. But anyway, let me continue on. This guy is stating that he's cross-contaminated with a gazelle or a relating ancient creature. You look in his beard area, right there. I highlighted the creature for you. So this is showing you that his cross-contamination, this is snaking out. This is what is coming out. These genes which are coming out of his penis, shown snaking off of this creature. Look, he's bridged over this creature, and together they create a new genetic. And his semen is cross-contaminated, and this represents semen. And now going over to this vessel, and it shows you the path from which that takes. So I know it's amazing. Hold on, people, but it gets better. Okay? So basically, go here, Google this image, and go here. There's an eye. There's features of that gazelle-like creature, that horned creature. See that? See the horn there? See the mouth? What is all of this doing here if what I'm stating is not true? Now, these genes, showing you genetic cyclination of genes, a cycle in the direction that they go. Just like if you're doctored, like today we have genetic grails where you can go into your doctor's office and they can tell by strands, genetic strands, how you are genetically identified. Well, artists did the same thing with their artwork in picture form. These are genetics in motion utilizing the individuals and the nations. Also, you can turn this, and if you look here, look in his forehead, because this is also a style that who used this? Oh, it's in the Lost Book of Nostradamus, where in the monk with the monk. This encryption style. See the chin, the mouth, the nose, and the eye of this witch-like woman, this old woman right here. You see that right there in the forehead of this guy, like almost like the Madonna-like person, the Virgin. You see this? Look, you see that other face, inner face, man and woman. You see that? See that half a face? Here, I'm coming up again. Chin, mouth, nose, eye. See that encrypted face? You see, people, what is being stated here is these people knew who they genetically were, and artists that captures these things in their paintings show and described how it was all done. And this is how these artists became famous for their artwork. People have spent their entire lives trying to figure out and understand what was the meaning and significance behind this artwork. Try to understand the message. And here I come along, asserting my paranormal sense of being, my multidimensional sense of awareness, my multidimensional sense of vision, and it allows me to see and understand these paintings for what they really are. Not just paintings, though. I can read all of space in the same exact way. So, let's go to the other half of this painting at these soldiers. Now, here you have Rome and Egypt cross-contaminating their genes from the continent of Africa, represented by the African woman, from the Egyptian civilization, which is that also is a representation of African continent, and onto the Roman nation. Now, these breakdowns of these genes shown by all of these characters, showing you the past. Let me bring this over here because this would actually be on this side. That, you see them there? Alright, I'm going from here. Actually, I'm going to slide it over like this here. So these genes are shown now in transit. Now, what are they being bridged over? All of this is taking place over water, which represents where we came from in the first place. And this is why this is being described in this way. Now, we come over here. Remember in that other picture that I was showing you, the original picture, that I showed you that the artist captures the queen as showing you that she has the African gene in her body in check. You see it? In check. Why am I seeing this? I see something else here too. Now, check this out. And Caesar over here is boasting about how he's now cross-contaminated. His blood is contaminated. This is representing his blood. His blood is contaminated by that of reptiles. Alright. I'm going to see if I see something else that I see here. Yeah, I do see something here. But I'm going to let that go. I do see something here, but I'm going to let that go. I see something there. However, it's about the black gene being controlled and placed in check. This is another artist's encryption style. This is what he utilized. And this artist encryption style, when he shows how the black gene has been contained and put in check, he shows that it's been shielded. Our black ancestral roots have been shielded, genetically altered and then shielded. So where would be the perfect place to show that these genes were shielded? Well, if you look at the shield here, it's a transparent shield. The shield actually is almost, you can almost see through it and see to the body of the soldier that's there. And in his clothing on the opposite side is the image of an ape and the shield. I highlighted it some for you. Do I have another image of it not being highlighted so you can get somewhat of an idea? Possibly, possibly not. Yeah, I got it here. But when you Google the image, back away from the image and realize that there's a mouth here, there's nostrils, and there's eyes. And the shield creates the head of an ape. It's a shadowed image, a mirrored image of the ape right there. Telling you that now the Romans have balanced that gene, contained it, corralled it, and have genetically moved further away from that of our ape and African ancestral roots. Which are depicted over here in this corner. All suggesting that a new bloodline has been created and is now carried into this by the body of this soldier, which is the force of Rome, meaning this soldier is a representation of Rome, meaning then that a new bloodline, a new semen line, is now procured by that nation of Rome. The guards is a representation of that nation. Now, the monkey is shown in a shield. There is an image of Cleopatra. Here, you back away from the image. Right here in the helmet. On that helmet piece, the ear covering piece, right there, there's a miniature. Here's the guard's face right here, the soldier's face right there. He has three faces: his own face, Cleopatra's face, and then the image of a red face, which looks like a devil, right there. You see it right there, which represents the blood of this guy, but genetically altered. This body represents Cleopatra's body, almost like on a maiden voyage, but look, altered. Her mini face right there, showing you that she has now jumped vessels, jumped ships, abandoned her vessel, and is genetically now on this vessel heading back to Rome, genetically. This, people, is a true story of that of Cleopatra and Julius Caesar. They conspired together to genetically contaminate Egypt, genetically alter Egypt, and do a genetic extraction which calls for the containment of these genes which originated from our ape ancestor. They created a shield, a genetic shield, which blocked the genes, the dominating genes of this creature beyond this point. this genetic contamination, which began over here, went to here, and is being controlled. All the images of that of Cleopatra, the true images, would describe the same exact thing. How these genes were controlled outwardly and physical changes were made. Genetic manipulations took place inwardly and physical changes took place outwardly. Julius Caesar, a representation of the reptilian genetics, represented by the crocodile, and I can do this over and over again. This is also a representation of the Vatican. I can do the same exact thing with them. With Jesus, with the story of Jesus. This is all symbolic message, a cult-like message, which shows a cocktail, a genetic brewing of genes, which calls for genetic changes of mankind on each nation. The entire story of the Bible, the entire story of each continent, I don't care whether it's Japan, whether it's China, whether it's Russia, every nation of our world, their ancient story is based on their genetic identity and how they genetically furthered themselves away from a creature that came before our African ancestors. And this is why their faces can be shown to you in the shadows, because they represent genetics and a genetic changing and a genetic altering. The story of Cleopatra now belongs to me. It would never be realized as being the same ever again. My name is Gerone Wright. You're watching my Geronification channel here on YouTube. Let me show you something else before I actually part on that. Did I actually... Where's my... Oh, over here. I have this highlighted here. Over here in this corner. Remember I told you that the water was involved? Here. If you notice a part of the empire there, or that structure, is shown broken down into a water. I can't really show you here because it's the pixels on this is actually. Well, what's happening here is it shows where I got my hand for it. Okay, you can see it a little bit. Here. Eye, head, open mouth. Shows you a serpent coming out of the water and onto land. It shows you in a way that there's a structure over here in the corner, and it shows you a piece of the structure. It makes it look like it's a building that's broken down and coming into the water. It makes no sense at all until you look at it in the way that I do. There's the eye, right there. The eye is up in here. Open mouth. A serpent coming out of the water. All a representation of a genetic change that involved reptiles and the genetic contamination of our ape and African ancestor, which calls for the change of not just the Egyptian people, which came after the African people, but the alterings along the line. It's a recyclination of genetics and changes, which I'm stating can happen every 400 plus years. A reintroduction or recontamination of those genes can actually take place again. And then that's what this is all about. Those genetic alterings, those genetic changes. My name is Gerone Wright. Thank you for joining me on my Geronification channel. I'm going to end this video on that note. And again, the story of Cleopatra now belongs to me. Thank you.